Hi, welcome to Outlaw Bookseller with Stephen Andrews. And as you see, after a long hiatus, probably 6 weeks, we're shooting in the hideout again, where I keep some of my cultural artifacts. I've actually got some space. I've cleaned up. The video widow has gone out. Smudge the cat is in the back garden sunning herself. And I've actually got some space and time to do some shooting, which is great because I've got quite a busy week coming up. I'll be going to Hay-on-Wye again some point doing that, lots of things going on. So I'm going to be shooting a lot this weekend. You probably won't see this weekend because we do time travel here. We try and keep things cognitively dissonant for the science fiction fans out there, at least the genuine ones. And it's just great to be back in here and to sort of sort things out a bit. And I've got to do some more tidying later on, and the books are a bit higgledy-piggledy and what have you. So today we're going to talk about hauntology and music. And as I've said before, I'm kind of behind the curve on hauntology. It sort of became a thing in the 90s, got talked about a lot from about 2006 onwards. But as I've also said, it is good to be behind the curve because it gives you critical distance. You can come at it your own way. And I'm actually a great believer in that. Sometimes jumping on trends too soon is the thing. And is hauntology a trend? No, it's a malaise. So hauntology has been written about a lot in the context of music by people like Mark Fisher and Simon Reynolds. I've mentioned Simon Reynolds' book Retromania, this one here, a few times, and if I've ever actually shown it to you, it is really good. I would recommend you read it. Excellent book. And not to sort of dig too much into it, I think if you're wondering about what hauntology is, I recommend Merlin Coverley's book Hauntology, which is the most lucid exploration. But hauntology has been used in sort of music criticism for some time. Compared to all sorts of music, but one particular strand is a nostalgic strand, looking back at our memories of the late 60s and early 1970s, when there was more of a welfare state feel about things, and there were nice public information films telling you to keep away from lakes and pylons and substations and stuff like that, and things are more gentle sort of generally. And also on the BBC you had the radiophonic workshop, which existed just to experiment and to create electronic scores of quite avant-garde variety for everyday TV programs. So that's one of the things that people interested in hauntology are nostalgic about. That future that we were promised, which has never come because of globalization and Thatcher. So with that in mind, there are people creating music of a very nostalgic feel. And the interesting thing is some of them are older people like myself. Some people involved in GHOSTBOX, the great label, are sort of older. There are younger people involved with it. So it shows that it's a cross-generational thing. I think to really feel hauntology, you have to sort of have to have been there really. But nevertheless, there's some great artists and musicians out there working on creating hauntological records. So it's going to be an interesting thing to look at. I guess I started to get into the stuff that GHOSTBOX do a while ago, and I was initially attracted by, I can't really remember how I came across them. I was attracted by the look of their records. They're very beautifully designed. And there's also a label called Clay Pipe, and you know, both do sort of quite small runs of things, and they're very sort of British and elegiac and nostalgic, and they're really nice. So what I'm going to do, this isn't exactly an unboxing, but I've bought a few things recently and I'm going to show you some things to the collection. So I'm going to unbox a couple of things which have literally come out this week. So we'll start first of all. This is The Scenic Route by The Pattern Forms. They have done other albums. This is the only one I've bought because you can listen to them online, and this is the one that sort of grabbed me. And as you see, very beautiful little, very sort of English sort of illustration style from the sort of thing that you got on the days of sort of early modernism. So I'm just going to sort of unwrap that now, or unbox as we say on the internet, on YouTube. So as you can tell, I probably seem a bit hungover. I'm not. I'm just absolutely wrecked from a week of shooting interviews with science fiction writers and going to work and moving zillions of books around. We really have moved a heck of a lot of books in the last sort of few weeks, I have to say. So I'm just going to unwrap this now and we'll take a look at it. And the scenic route and the cover, immediately that tells you something. You've got a nice sort of British sort of seascape there, the lighthouse, what have you. Nice plain. Notice the sort of typeface, the graphic design of these things is definitely sort of retro. And oh, it comes in a black polylined inner, which is good because I've run out of black polylined inners. And we'll just have a look at this. And And this is on clear vinyl, as you can see. You can actually see the Outlaw Bookseller through it. Has bespoke labels, and side 1 is called A route and side 2 is called B route. So there you go. So usually, but not always, these things come with a download card. There's my download card. I'm not going to show you that because you can't nick the code. So later on I'll download that and burn a CD of it. Sometimes the GHOSTBOX things, they're usually available on CD as well. You can get downloads. The LPs are usually sort of limited run, and this is on the Barbary music imprint, which is an imprint within GHOSTBOX. Let's see who's involved with it. All songs by Brooks, Gibson, McFarlane and Munger. And I haven't studied the detail of the musicians enough, but Brooks suggests me John Brooks, who's also records under his own name. That's John Jon, and also as the Advisory Circle. So I suspect that that's him on there. And very nice stuff. And I'll just do the quick curating thing as ever. So this is new this week, and it came out on, I think it was Thursday. I know LPs normally come out Friday. That came out Thursday, and very, very good. And they're not too expensive either, which is beautiful. They get expensive later on if you've got to buy them second hand or, you know, what have you. So that's the scenic route. And I do have another one here, which is very pretty. There we go. And you can see that. Hague Fras Luminous Foundation topographical surveys, which suggest maps. And that's got a very sort of Eno feel about it as well, doesn't it? Let's see what it says in the back. I'll just show you the back. It's got a brittle star on it, which is a type of starfish, as I'm sure you probably know. And it says, impressionistic soundings from this extra regio reef. Extra regio, I don't know what that means, I have to look that up. Located 95 kilometers northwest of the Eyes of Scilly, 120 meters deep, with peaks 82 meters high. It's the subaquatic aspect of the Cornubian batholith. I'm not sure if this is actually factually correct, but this is some sort of fiction, so I have to check on that. A granite bedrock that erupts as vast tors as far inland as Bodmin and Dartmoor. Though what do I know about geology? I know a bit about paleontology, fossils, dinosaurs, that sort of thing. Its unique ecology, including anemones, corals, lobsters, urchins, crinoids and sponges, has made it a special area of conservation. And it has track titles like jewel anemone, sea lilies, feather star, brittle star. So there's 8 of them. And it says all music and field recordings, interestingly, by Neil Mortimer and Mark Pilkington. So yeah, so there we go. Very, very beautiful. And I listened to some of that. Again, you can listen to little snippets on the website, on the Barbary Music website. And I'm just going to unclip that now. So as you see, you know, straight away with these things, there's definitely a relationship to the sense of place. And I guess the kind of text of this sort of music would be Brian Eno's work. One naturally thinks of Ambient 4 on Land, which is a magnificent record. And I got into Eno around about the time that came out. I think I was into him as a member of Roxy Music in the 70s, but then in the 80s, I got into his solo work. And by then he was doing the ambient series, and things like Another Green World was sort of proto-ambient record and what have you. So, you know, they're influenced by him. And if you take John Brooks as a name, that sounds very much like the sort of person, that sort of name has a kind of ring to it that, you know, you'd expect like John Hassel or Michael Brook, I guess, people who work with Eno. So, you know, everything is sort of redolent of his influence. And I actually think that even though personally I feel his work has really gone for the boil since the early 90s, I kind of sort of lost interest in what he was doing, because he's always on about, you know, doing new things and, you know, redundant forms and what have you. Yet he does the same thing all the time, which is fine. You know, it's fine if he wants to do it. But the most radical thing Eno could do now is really go on tour with an acoustic guitar and play songs around pubs. That would be really radical for him, rather than sort of making sort of records about bells tolling for 1 million years or what have you. So just drop the old download codes. We'll get that there. So Hague Fras, we'll have a quick look at it now. Again, nice polylined inner. Thanks for that, guys. And bright green vinyl. This is a little bit more transparent than I like, but as you see, it's very beautiful. So there we are. So that's my latest hauntological records. Now have a look at a few more. Now, I'm afraid that we can't listen to the music on the channel for copyright reasons, but you can get out and listen yourself. And if you like sort of synth instrumentals, a bit of folk type things, you know, they're good. I tend to avoid the ones with vocals on because I'm a very lyric critical person. I find that unless lyrics are really strong, I really struggle with them. I really can't stand banal lyrics. And I think that's one reason why, as I've grown older, I've listened to fewer and fewer things by younger musicians, because they don't have the life experience, and often they haven't done the reading. And you know, I do insist on eloquence, you know, and a certain amount of that. But being a writerly sort of guy, I would, you know, it's just the way I am, I'm afraid. So sorry about that. So there you go. So that's rather nice. So just to talk a bit more about the other things they do, and it's as much a visual thing, I think, and a feel thing. It's very broadly conceptual, and I think these labels do it really well. So I just want to talk to you about a few more things. I got some others earlier this week, a bit of a splurge, and this is from Clay Pipe, and this is Cafe Caput, Maritime Themes and Textures. Look at that, absolutely marvellous. And Cafe Caput is a lady who runs this label, and this is a numbered edition. You probably can't see it, but this is hand numbered, number 650 of 700, and her name is Kate something. In one of these there's a little flyer. Here's the flyer, which in itself is really beautiful, and you can frame it. It shows a lot of the records and things. So do have a look on the website, and it says Clay Pipe Music is a London-based record label run by illustrator Francis Castle. It has released music inspired by Green Line buses, Muriel Spark ghost stories, good thing, Hackney Marshes, space travel, the approaching spring, Great Yarmouth, Lido's, Welsh mythology, yay, lost streets of London, lighthouses, Herefordshire, and departed villages. So yeah, so there you go. So very interesting stuff. And as I say, Cafe Caput is a woman called Kate. It's C-A-T something. I can't remember the rest of her name, and I do apologise. But you look it up. This is what it's for. It's to get you into things. It's not to tell you everything. Your chapter verse is to open a door for you. And it's got rather nice inner sleeve with some sort of handsome little sailing yachts on there. The only thing about this was the record came inside the sleeve and it's frayed the edge. Lost a few marks there. And these don't come shrink wrapped, which is, you know, environmentally that's a good thing, but you know, so I popped this in a polyline in it, and I'm out of black ones, so tragedy, I had to use a white one. Clear yellow vinyl, and this album was inspired by a little manual or something of nautical language, and you know, we find that very evocative. It's like the shipping news, isn't it? People listen to that and they seem to think that it's fantastic. It's like a piece of prose poetry or dada poetry, and people love it. People have been fascinated. There's been several books about it over the years, and people are fascinated by it. So yeah, so this has got track titles like Waves and Knots, Tugboat, Light Vessel Automatic, and there was a band called Light Vessel Automatic, which I think Roger Eno and Kate St. John were involved with. Not my sort of thing, but there you go. So that's out this week, and that's very beautiful. So that's another one. And also I acquired this week as well. This is another Clay Pipe record, Gilroy Mere, The Green Line, and as you see, I'm just going to nip it out the sleeve because it's a bit reflective. Again, this came out without shrink wraps, so there you go. It's a person on a bus, and it's a green bus. And I read about this, and one of the chaps involved said that when he was young, growing up on the fringes of London, he would see green buses going into the country and red buses going to the city. And he always dreamed of going on the green buses and going out into the countryside. And as you see, it's really beautiful. And I think, you know, the graphic design of these things is fantastic. And what you get in it, you get a really nice little inner sleeve, and it tells you what instruments they use, and it's got 10 tracks, mostly instrumental. There's a couple of vocal things in it, so we'll see what those are like, and he tells you what all the instruments he uses. It's a mixture of sort of mostly retro stuff, old synths and what have you, which is what I like, because old synths are the best. And it's a really fantastic package because it comes with, you get this piece of card, and it's got a little bus on it that you can cut out and fold and make a little bus up. So I won't be doing that, of course, because you know, it's such a nice piece of art, you know. And again, it's a limited edition, and we'll just have a look. Hand numbered, number 199 of 500. Fantastic. There you go. And best of all, again, it's coloured vinyl. We'll have a look at it, and I popped it in. So they don't come with their own inner, these, so I popped my own in. As I said, I've run out of black ones, which I say is shocking, isn't it? And it's really beautiful green and yellow, reflecting the livery of said buses. which are probably gone now, you know. And it's funny what people get nostalgic about. You think, oh God, it's only a bus, you know. But, you know, these things, they have a greater impact. And hauntology, you know, is nostalgic. We're haunted by these things. It's about what we're haunted by. And they vary from person to person. But this is a sort of particularly sort of English or British sort of haunting. And I really relate to that. I think it's great. So I'm really looking forward to listening to that. And as I say, you can play some of it on the website. So that was the other one I bought this week. I've got one more thing to unwrap. And that's a cassette, also by Gilroy Mere. And this is the album Adlestrop. And as you see, it's somebody on a train. I'm just going to clip the shrink off now. Cassettes making a comeback. Who'd have thought it? The thing is, you can't buy a tape deck anywhere for love or money. You've got to get a second-hand one. Well, you know, we'll know when they're really coming back when somebody starts producing a decent level tape deck at a reasonable price. I don't think anybody's producing them at all at the moment, but, you know, it'll happen. I've got a little portable which I bought probably about 15 years ago from the Cassette shop in Bristol, which is a wonderful little shop which sadly is closed down. It was there for years behind the Bristol Hippodrome, and I'm just going to unwrap that. The video always says this is like, you know, the moment of consummation. You know, people obviously really get off on the shrink wrap coming off, and I do. I love it. So there you go. It's a nice red cassette, and I'll show you the cover again. Look at that. So somebody in an old school train carriage there. Do you remember those? Some of us old enough to remember them, of course. And basically, this album, the idea was one of the chaps involved, he read about the beaching cuts which happened in the 60s, where Beeching's report ended up closing down a huge number of the small railway lines around Britain, which wasn't really very good thinking. You know, years later, of course, we got roads choked with things. It was very political because there was a lot of haulage firms, new haulage firms working on the roads and lorries, who were lobbying Conservatives to get the railway network shut down. The main problem with the railway network at that time was lack of investment. It was still on steam, and, you know, it should have gone to diesel. Obviously, we know now that diesel isn't great, but, you know, for me, it's a very big thing because, as anybody who's watched my other videos will know, where I was born and grew up, just outside the house, there was a railway halt until, you know, a few years before I was born. It stopped carrying passengers 6 years before I was born, and stopped running altogether when I was 2, because it was just freight then. And my life would have been very different. As a rural kid, my life would have been different. I could have got on the train and gone here, there and everywhere. And this is what this is about. And this chap, he went out and went to look for some of the stations, or the remnants of the stations, of places that were shut down, and he made this concept album about it. And I think that's great. You know, it's fantastic. So the sense of place is very important to hauntology. So you can see why it's had such a resonance with people, particularly people who possibly come from a quasi-rural background. It's pretty interesting stuff. So I'm just going to show you some more because they're beautiful. Just at random, really. This is one of John Brooks's albums, and Barbary Music Cafe Kaput is the imprint again, and this is Applied Music Land and Sea, a very sort of Eno-esque title, as you can see, and this is really nice, really nice sort of analog synths and what have you. And again, you know, usually you get a download. Sometimes I get the CDs as well, and this comes on a beautiful, from where I'm looking now, you can't see me, and it looks turquoise with the light through it. And I turn it over and I can see it's green, probably like a dark green, but it's a lovely, lovely LP. And this is one of my favourite hauntology records. You could just call it an ambient album, really. Of course, a true ambient album you wouldn't notice because you're supposed to ignore it, but there's very little of that out there, really. If I had to name my favourite ambient album, obviously one cleaves to Eno and Another Green World and On Land, which is magnificent. But I think my sort of favourite one after that would be probably Substrata by Biosphere, but the original version, because the later one is remixed and isn't so good. And it's I've tried with Biosphere. He's Norwegian, I believe, and his other stuff always has beats or repetitive vocal samples, and I can't stand repetitive vocal samples, which is why I can't listen to Boards of Canada. And you know, they have tendency to do that early on. I don't know if they still do, but they did early on when that first album came out. You know, I just find that's rhythm, that's dance music. It's not ambient, you know, it really isn't. So Substrata by Biosphere with the white digipack, if you can ever get that, pick it up, it's amazing. But yeah, this is great. So really, really beautiful, as you see. So that's a fave as well. That's John Brooks. And as I've said, he also records as the Advisory Circle. And this is on the GHOSTBOX label. This is his album Ways of Seeing. It's lovely gold. Reminds you of sort of Ektachrome, Kodachrome film, the way it was promoted in the 70s. I'm sure like gold boxes and stuff. And it's got pictures on the back, which are the sort of things you'd see in photography books at the time. There's an owl and people diving and what have you. And Ways of Seeing, of course, is a reference to John Burge's wonderful book, Ways of Seeing. There was a TV series about how we look at pictures and their political meanings, their physical meanings, what have you. So if you've not read Ways of Seeing, it's really good. Burge can be a tad pretentious at times, but he's also very interesting as well. So, but this is a great one. And in this case, I got the CD as well, because sometimes I get the CDs as well. Because the albums are so beautiful you can't resist them, but that's the CD. So multi-format madness with the Outlaw Bookseller. There you go. I'm sure you do it as well. And just to look inside, I'll just show you the inner sleeve. Again, you know, the sort of pictures you'd get in a photography book at the time. The typeface is sort of there as well. It also reminds me, because of the slightly nostalgic feel of these photographs, the way they're toned, it reminds me of the John Fox album Tiny Colour Movies, which is a fantastic record. And of course that's based on a series of films that somebody made, little clips of films, which I won't go into more. Look it up for yourselves, and it's fascinating. It's one of John's great records. And somebody's asked recently, because I've started doing interviews and because I know John vaguely, am I going to do a John Fox interview? The answer is I hope so. When I see him, when I bump into him, because we bump into each other, that's the way it is. I may well ask him. I'm just trying to get the channel sort of standards raised and stuff for a pro like him, and I'm very, very respectful of him because he's one of my favourite artists. But he's a lovely man, and hopefully, that will happen at some point. Hopefully, we'll get to a chat and film it. So fingers crossed. And also on this album, you get, again, it's on a kind of gold vinyl. There we go. They always do such a lovely job. But you've got to be quick with these because they go out of print very quickly. So if you're thinking of getting into it, have a listen to the music first, because the music's the important thing. Anybody can buy books or records as they look nice. I mean, and you can only really do that if you've got bags of money. You've got to actually enjoy the artifacts for their own sake. And, so be quick off the mark, I would say, and sign up to the mailing list and what have you, because that's an important thing. So a few more, the advisory circle, and this is an interesting one as well. From Out Here. I can never remember the title because it's never on the cover. It is on the cover, and as you see, it's got a very sort of that typeface. You'd see a lot of things like sort of SF or science-oriented things in the 70s, and it's very brown and green, brown, a very 70s colour. Of course, everything was brown then. And this is a great record as well, and just wonderful graphics, as you see, absolutely wonderful. So that's another good one. That's on black vinyl, I think, and I think I've got a CD of that somewhere as well. Really, really nice. So there we are. And just to talk more theoretically a moment, this is an album made by Mark Fisher and Justin Barton, and this is called On Vanishing Land, and this I think was recorded after Mark Fisher sadly took his own life. And Justin Barton's an actor, and I think he's a bit of a writer as well. I don't know a lot about him. And they made this album, which is deleted now and has never been released on CD. Again, you get download, and it's got all sorts of people doing the music: John Fox, Gazelle Twin, Farmers of Vega, all sorts of things. Really interesting. And basically, Mark and Justin went for a walk some years ago on the south coast in Sussex, and they talk about their walk, and some of the sort of titles of tracks from Eno's On Land are in that area, because Eno grew up there, Woodbridge in Suffolk. And interestingly, of course, Woodbridge was near where the famous Rendlesham Forest UFO sighting about 1980. I think, people saying, did it happen? Because there's already an alien there, because Eno was there, So, and this is a great record if you can get it. And Justin's got a very sort of clipped English middle class voice, which I wasn't sure at first, but I do quite like it. So he narrates this, and it's a great record. And interestingly, my first exposure to Justin was when he appeared on this album, The Quiet Man by John Fox. They've got a concert ticket in there because I went to one of the gigs which John played to promote this. And again, this is deleted, but this is one of Fox's finest works. And a lot of the text comes from his book, The Quiet Man, which you can get online. And, it's very, very beautiful. And it's it's just a magnificent combination of a man wandering around a city, thinking about things, you know, just enjoying the drift of life. And occasionally there are SF interludes when the city is deserted and nobody's around, and there's one survivor and he's left, and he goes to cinemas and hotels and he just hangs out and enjoys the quietude of the city as it becomes overgrown. And again, I've done a video about this, about John Fox and the Catastrophe novel, and that's somewhere on the channel as well, probably in the Hauntology strand. So Justin sort of narrates that rather than John, which is a surprise, because I thought John would do it himself, but he plays the piano on it, the synth. It's absolutely beautiful, it really is. One of my favourite records of the last 20 years. So that's an amazing one. And just to round up a few more little things, just to show you more of the beauty of these records. This is Outward Journey by the Barbary Circle, which is John Brooks's advisory circle combined with a guy called Jim Jupp, who is basically the Barbary Poly. Funnily enough, I don't get on with the Barbary Poly records, but when they combine and become the Barbary Circle, I really like them. And it sort of suggests, you know, a tube station in the suburbs in Metroland, you know, and that's the CD. And there's the cassette. So look at that. Very Tomorrow's World. And these are really nice little synth instrumentals and stuff. Lovely. And the cassettes are just a nice little novelty to have. You can pop them in the player and pop them on, and you can pretend it's the 70s, and it's great. And some people say nostalgia is a bad thing. I love it. I don't care. I mean, as you get older, you have more behind you than you do ahead of you. And what's wrong with it? What's wrong with looking back at those great times? People say you sugarcoat them, you know, you rose tint them. But, you know, if that helps you get through the night, as Japan once said, you know, then that's okay. You know, that's fine. What's wrong with that? Enjoy it. Finally, I'm going to show you one of my favourite records on the GHOSTBOX label, probably my favourite record, and that's John Fox and the Barbary Circle. And this is Empty Avenues, which is a 6-track EP, and I've got a really nice 10-inch single of this, which 10-inch EP, which I can't find, it's here somewhere. And this is absolutely fantastic. And even though I'm a huge fan of John's work, this I think is one of the best things he's done in the last 20 years. And there's one track particularly called Almost There, which is a reference to a moment in his Quiet Man album about a woman and someone almost there, which is so beautiful and serene and full of longing and tragedy. Well, I talked for far, far longer than I was intending to, but I just wanted to show you the beauty of those records and to encourage you to look into this music, because it really is rather nice. And if you're like me and you're struggling with the same old thing in contemporary music, this is an old thing. There's not much new about it, apart from the conceptual side, which has evolved over many decades. But it is beautiful and it is interesting. So this is Outlaw Bookseller, signing out for now. Have a great day.